Alright, welcome back everyone. Today I want to talk about my experience leveling a Gemling Legionnaire using Hollow Palm technique. The power charges, the changes to how power charges work with Falling Thunder are really good in 0.3. So what I wanted to do was focus on power charge generation and spend those charges on Falling Thunder. The rework of advanced thaumaturgy from Gemling seemed like a good way to generate charges, and then I would also have siphoning strikes for an on-demand ability to get charges. For the main skill, I planned on going with Ice Strike. Since the Hollow Palm Keystone was a bit of a hike from the mercenary start, I wanted to wait until I had some gear to help make that journey. So this wasn't my first character. I had started a different league start, and I probably would not recommend doing the Gemling as a league start yourself. I did get pretty lucky early on with a Pillar of the Cage God drop, so I did end up re-rolling to Merc a little bit earlier than I had originally planned. The Pillar of the Cage God was the only real twink gear I used, but I did have some gear from my first run that I used to help. The charge generation with Killing Palm is pretty clunky to me, so I was going to wait to use Falling Thunder until after I got the Ascendancy points for the passive generation. But with a decent weapon, Glacial Cascade and Frozen Locust work well together, even with the nerf to Frozen Locust. You just have to destroy the Ice Crystal before the mobs get to it. Leveling overall was pretty smooth, but once I did get to where I was using Ice Strike, I did start feeling the changes to evasion, especially in the Abyssal events. I really like the Abyssal League mechanic, by the way. I didn't really play much in PoE 1, so it is a new mechanic to me, and I did enjoy it throughout the campaign, minus a few minor issues with tight corridors and skills that run across the ground like Stormwave. Since I was struggling somewhat with survivability in close range as an evasion build, I decided to try Stormwave out since Glacial Cascade was serving me pretty well, especially in the Abyssal events. It was effective and fun, so I kept playing it. I did end up changing over to Herald of Thunder from Herald of Ice. I did keep Frozen Locusts on my skill bar just to help for when I did get surrounded. And I would still try to mix in Ice Strike just to see if the melee was getting better as my gear got better. The first Ascendancy run was pretty easy. The damage from Hollow Palm was good. I took the first 2 points in gem quality. I know it's not that big of a benefit early on, but it was better than nothing. I think it was the Jamenra fight where I really started thinking that melee was not going to be for me in this league, at least the evasion version. Sometimes he was just surrounded by bad, and I would die too fast if I was to try to get in and trade with him, so I needed something ranged. I know that there's videos of people leveling just fine with Ice Strike and other melee abilities. They're already doing maps and clearing T15s and all that stuff, but for me, it just didn't feel super fun being so squishy, even though I had invested points into defense on the tree. I decided to go full mid-range caster and leaned pretty heavy into lightning damage by the time I got to my second Ascendancy trial. The run went smoothly. I got the Bloodbird boss. I didn't have any issues. Damage was still doing fine with Hollow Palm and Stormwave. Super happy with how Hollow Palm is performing. Now that I got the Ascendancy done, it was time to get the build online. The second set is where the Advanced Thaumaturgy comes into play. So I clicked the Ascendancy nodes and I waited for those sweet power charges to come rolling in. Only it didn't. Maybe I'm dense or whatever, but the way that I was reading the tooltip was that the total stat requirement of socketed skills would determine the type of charge you got. So if I had a total requirement of say 100 dex and 125 int, that I'd get power charges. But I was wrong. I even went on to the forums to ask for if I was doing this wrong, and someone explained to me that it doesn't work that way. It's a roll every 8 seconds, and it's kind of chance based on your gem requirements. So I went in and I just added a whole bunch of int skills that I wasn't even going to use, just to make sure that I had a lot higher intellect requirement than dex, but I kept getting frenzy charges. So I had to decide if I wanted to keep going or go ahead and stop and reroll to something else, because the whole build idea had hinged on this mechanic to generate those charges for me. I decided to keep pushing forward, thinking I could figure this out, and it was still fun to play. I just had to wait longer between those free charges than what I was expecting. I know that I could use Profane Ritual to generate charges, but it didn't fit the theme I was going for this character. I don't typically like to add skills just because they add power if they don't fit into the idea that I have for that character. Kind of like casting a quote-unquote necro spell on a non-necro character. It's weird, I know, but it's how I enjoy the game. By Act 3, everything is rolling pretty well, but then I made it into Doriani's hideout and remembered why I don't like playing lightning builds. The eye cancer. When you have lightning mobs on top of your lightning skills and Herald of Thunder going off, you can't see shit and it makes my eyes hurt. But I wanted to keep going because I wanted to see all of Act 4. I only made it far enough to get my trade hideout on my first character, so I didn't really get to see much of the rest of the act. And also I thought that I could just skip lightning maps whenever I got to endgame. Act 4 is amazing. The zones are gorgeous, the bosses are really cool, tons of stuff that I just liked about it. Can't say enough good things. But I did have some issues with I'd say the amount and how narrow the tight corridors are in a bunch of the maps. Hopefully GGG will open those up just a little bit in future updates. It wasn't enough to make me dislike the maps wholeheartedly. It was just, it was an annoyance. Especially whenever Abyssal popped up. I did have some areas that I couldn't damage the enemies because Stormwave runs along the ground, and they would not go over the holes created by the Abyssal fissures. So in those tight corridors, I couldn't damage the enemies, and they were so packed in there that I couldn't run up to do any sort of melee, even if I would have had that on my skill bar. So I had to run around, go kind of like to the back side so that I could attack the enemies. That's probably not an issue for most builds, but it effectively neutered mine. It just wasn't fun. But that's up to my skill choice. With the annoyances of Abyssal Fissures and Stormwave aside, I was getting close to wrapping up the campaign, so I just wanted to go ahead and push through. And I did end up doing that, and I finished out my character, and he's now sitting ready for maps. Overall, it was a fun playthrough, but I don't think I'm going to go any further with this character. The main reason I rolled Gemling was for that passive power charge generation. Towards the end, I did start using charge regulation, the spirit gem, and at least got some use out of the frenzy charges that were being generated, because you do get increased attack speed while you have a frenzy charge. But the downside is that skill also eats your power charges. So whenever I was doing a boss and trying to generate enough power charges to then use Falling Thunder, that skill kept eating them, and so it was just taking me longer to generate enough power charges to use a full stack against them. One thing for Hollow Palm, though, I will say is really nice, not having to rely on RNG for a good weapon to keep moving forward and keep your progress going. I really do like that about Hollow Palm. I'd say if they changed how advanced thaumaturgy works to make it where if you do slot more intellect or dex or whatever it is, that you get just a single type of power charge, I'd probably go back and take it and give it another look. But for now, I'm on to the next build, which is going to be a Poison Pathfinder. I really want to try out the new Toxic Growth and also see just how bad concoctions are. Concoctions are one of my favorite builds, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to like these new changes. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know if you played Hollow Palm, what your experience was like, and if you have other build ideas you'd like to see me try, post those down below, and I'll try to see if I can make something work. I always enjoy seeing what fun ideas people can come up with. Take care, and I will see you next time.